In this video, I'll discuss the goal-setting theory of motivation. The bottom line is that we know that goals motivate. Simply having a goal helps motivate us. It increases the quantity and quality of performance. We work harder and we work longer when we have a goal. We might wonder why that is the case. It helps us direct attention and allocate our cognitive resources. That's a fancy way of saying it helps us think about what it is we want to accomplish. It mobilizes effort. We must work in order to achieve a goal. You've probably noticed on my emails that I sign facta non verba, which is Latin for deeds and not words. Talking never gets you anywhere. It takes action to achieve a goal. It helps develop strategies for goal achievement. If we have the end state in mind, then it helps us develop more effective strategies, or the most effective and most efficient strategy to reach that end state. Finally, it helps us continue exerting effort. Persistence is required if we're going to accomplish a goal. There are conditions for effective goal setting. The first is that a goal should be specific and measurable. We should be able to specify exactly what the end state is, what condition will exist or conditions will exist when we have accomplished this goal. We should be able to measure that. The goal should be difficult and challenging. The real art of goal setting is finding a goal that's difficult enough to motivate, but not so difficult that it demotivates. In other words, we want to accomplish or achieve a stretch goal, one that's a little difficult for us, but not so difficult that we decide we can't achieve it. And we want goals to be participative in terms of the subordinate, or the person whose responsibility it is to achieve the goal, having played a part in establishing the goal. If you play a part in establishing the goals that you pursue, then you're much more likely to be committed to those goals. And we want the subordinate to receive objective and timely feedback. We want them to get timely feedback in terms of whether or not they're moving effectively towards a goal, whether they're meeting the milestones between beginning towards the goal and final goal accomplishment. And we want that to be objective. In other words, especially if it's a measurable goal, we want them to know that they're a fourth of the way there, half, three-fourths, or whatever the case may be. There are some strategies that leaders can use to more effectively use goal setting. Set specific, clear, and measurable goals. We should be clear about what it is we want our subordinates to accomplish, and if at all possible, that should be measurable. We should balance the level of challenge. Again, we want to make sure that it's a stretch goal, difficult enough to motivate, but not so difficult that it demotivates. We want to recognize partial accomplishment and incrementally increase difficulty. If the individual is moving effectively towards the goal, has an effective strategy, we can typically increase the difficulty as their skill level and as their confidence increases as they're moving toward accomplishing that goal. We want to provide objective and timely feedback, establish milestones en route to the goal so that the individual can measure whether or not they've achieved those incremental milestones between beginning and end towards goal accomplishment. And we want to gain commitment on the goals. We want to the extent possible, allow subordinates to participate in setting the goal so that they're more committed to it. And we want to increase self-efficacy. The more that we use goal setting, the more we use stretch goals, the greater the generalized self-efficacy that will help an individual develop, and the greater will be their specific self-efficacy in terms of particular types of tasks or challenges. Now, goal setting in policing is unique in that what we measure may be different than what might be measured in the private sector. We could measure outputs. When we typically measure a lot of outputs, we'll measure number of summonses written, number of calls answered, number of accident reports taken, the time of average response, and so any number of outputs may be measured, but those may be different than outcomes. An outcome might be reducing an accident rate at a given intersection, or reducing your traffic fatality rate from substance abuse related driving, or reducing residential daytime burglaries. Those are outcomes, and it's important that we specify the outcome because that helps us develop a strategy. It's easy to tell an officer to go write a dozen summonses. It's different to tell them to reduce the accident rate at a given intersection, because that might require more than a dozen summonses, or actually it might require less. It might require more targeted enforcement in a given area or piece of a roadway near an intersection. What if difficult isn't enough? We need to think about whether or not the goals that we set are difficult as we could possibly make them in policing. And sometimes we perhaps don't stretch ourselves as much as we should. And the other fact that we have to face up to in policing is that we may not be able to accomplish some of the goals that we would perhaps like to, because we don't always control all of the circumstances related to achieving a given outcome. And it should be participative to the extent possible. But police leaders are part of a government typically, and that government is directed by elected officials. And so to that extent, there are many more people perhaps involved in setting goals.